Yeah, I've been playing with the whetstone, and it is wet, but the little blade, the one I used the most on the Swiss Army knife, was getting dull. It's actually getting to the point I got a pretty decent edge. The big blade, it could go a little bit. The big blade I keep sharp. I don't hardly ever use that. That was the little one when you cut plastic or a little piece of twine or something. Yeah, I never really hid the fact that I was a veteran. Although keep in mind, I won't claim I served in a combat zone. I never did. Of course, we got the Bible over there, but that's beside the point. I was thinking a lot about a guy I used to know. Yeah, I don't think he's alive anymore, but name's Milo. When I first came out of the service, I started poking around farm auctions and buying odd junk. I kind of liked old tools and old horse equipment, and I heard about him a long time before I ever met him. And we met at a farm auction. There was a swage block, spelled SWAGE, and it was blacksmith equipment. It was like 6 inches thick by maybe 28 inches by 28 inches with all kinds of different sizes of hole. And, square, rectangular. What it was the blacksmith used to use that for sizing the hot iron. They didn't drive it through the swage block. They just used that as a gauge. They'd slide if it slid and if it caught somewhere, they knew where they had to work a little harder. Well, Milo and I were the only two that bid. The auctioneer was shocked. They figured it was going to go for scrap metal, and I took it to about a third of what I thought it was worth, and I let Milo have it. And that was the day I met him. And later on in the auction, one of the ringmen come up beside me and asked me what that was, and I tried to explain it to him, but he didn't really understand. But you go, they have the big horse sale down in Waverly, Iowa, and you take stuff down there, and I'm pretty sure that would have brought $800 at that time, maybe more. But at any rate, over the years, I'd bump into Milo at auctions, and we'd talk a little bit. Yeah, I guess it was about 10 years ago. He was a older farmer, and about 10 years ago, down at the threshing show down at Butterfield, I come up on Milo sitting on a bench, and he was all alone, had his 2 canes sitting beside him, and I sat on and we talked, I bet you 45 minutes. And he told me he couldn't drive anymore, and his grandson was there somewhere, but his grandson had wanted to look at something, and he was resting, so we talked. And Milo, just out of the blue, he told me a story that I thought was just incredible. He said that when he was 19 years old in 1943, early 1943, he had rented a farm and had rounded up some equipment, and he was going to farm. And I know for a fact that he could have taken the farm exemption at the time, but he had an older brother who was married and had a job in town, had kids, and he had a younger brother that was mentally handicapped. Somebody from the draft board cornered Milo's dad in town and told him, one of your boys is going, and you decide which one. Now, I thought that was just incredibly cruel, but I think at that point in the war, I think the fact that the one brother, I think all 3 of them would have been exempt at that point, because the eldest, he had children, and Milo could have taken the farm exemption, and they aren't going to take a handicapped boy. That would have to be pretty desperate. But at any rate, his folks sat with him at the table one night, and they discussed it, and Milo decided he would go. He said, what can you do? And he told me he was in California training to go through the Pacific, and somebody came through the barracks yelling for anybody that could speak German to go see the first sergeant. Well, that was common. I ran across it in the 90s yet, where families would still speak German at home. Grandma taught them or something. They were born here, but they would, they'd be talking in English, and they decided they wanted to hold a private conversation, and they would flip over to German. In fact, it's to the point I hung around. I'm not German at all. I don't have a drop of German blood I'm aware of. But it's to the point where I can pick out words. I can get the gist of what they're talking about. Well, at any rate, so Milo said he went and saw the first sergeant. And he said the very next morning he was on a train to the East Coast. And he got sent to sent to France right on the tail of D-Day. He said that was the best thing that could ever happen to him. And he said he was an interpreter. And he said quite a bit. He would get a carton of cigarettes and a box of candy bars, and he would go he'd hand his weapon off to his rifle, off to one of the guards, and he would go sit in the cage with the German prisoners. Milo's exact, precise words to me were, "They were farm boys like you and me." That's what he said. He said they had no politics at all. They were just conscripts. And he told that story. And he told how when they did finally get to Germany, he said it was very rare to find anybody over 40 years old. On account of the terms of World War I, actually that was armistice. A lot of people make a mistake. Germany didn't lose the First World War. They just agreed to quit fighting. Well, everybody was out for blood. There was another mistake that happened in those negotiations too. A lot of people don't realize that Japan was our ally in the First World War, and they had committed ships and sailors and had lost men. They had bled in World War I fighting against Austrian and German navies, and they were basically ignored and insulted, and that was also a mistake. But the terms of the armistice, they put really harsh, I think that was the Treaty of Versailles, but I could be wrong. They put harsh restrictions on Germany, which pretty much broke Germany. Long before the United States went into a depression, Germany was in a state of depression. In fact, the Weimar government tried to print money. They tried to print money with nothing to back it up, and pretty much crashed their economy. A lot of you can draw parallels, and I won't disagree. But he said, Milo told me it was really rare to find anybody over the age of 40 in Germany. At any rate, the elder generations, they had made the decision that they would starve themselves so that their children and grandchildren could eat. I mean, that to me is incredible. I mean, you'd have to hunt to find people that are that dedicated and that stubborn in this country now. Yeah, this will be my longest video ever. I've actually talked for over 9 minutes. I suppose I better get back to sharpening my knife. I don't know when I'll put this up. Well, thank you.